These are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. I want to talk about the 49ers stock up players after they absolutely dominated the Giants. And I know the final score doesn't display that the 49ers dominated this game, but they really did. Besides that first drive for the New York Giants where they went down and got a touchdown and really the defense looked like it was struggling a little bit, the 49ers had full control after that. They went down, got a touchdown of their own, and then they just continued to make plays on offense, to make plays on defense, to make plays on special teams. And this was one of the most complete performances we've seen from the 49ers so far. And this is exactly what you were expecting after they got embarrassed by the Houston Texans. Nobody wants to go out there and get their butt kicked the way the 49ers did against Houston. Kyle Shanahan had some choice words about it. And then you had Trent Williams after the game talking about this is what happens when you take pride in preparation. And I think that we saw that on full display in this game. And so I want to talk about some of those top performers, the guys that were really showing up and showing out in this game, because I think it's very important for the trajectory of this football team. The 49ers are sitting at 6-3, number 6 overall in the playoff picture. And when you look at some of the numbers, the 49ers have a 79% playoff probability. And so they are sitting pretty comfortable. The Detroit Lions are at number 7. They're at 74%. And then after you get past that, there's nobody above 30%. The Chicago Bears are the 8th best team in the NFC right now, and they're under 30%. So it just illustrates where exactly the 49ers are at. They are in the mix to make the playoffs. Now, it's not a foregone conclusion, but they've done a lot of things in the early part of this season to set themselves up to potentially be able to be in the playoff mix. Number one, they took care of business inside the NFC West. They defeated the Rams, Cardinals, and Seahawks in their first opportunities to beat them and set themselves up for success. Now, the Rams are about to come up, and this Week 10 matchup is going to be huge, and I can't wait to talk about it all week long. But right now, the 49ers at least are in a position where that trade deadline that's coming up tomorrow is so important. What are the 49ers ultimately going to do? What decision are they going to make? Are they going to go and get a big fish? Are they just going to go get another role player? The Mikael Williams injury might play into this. It might not. There's still players that could be coming back. And so this is going to be an interesting end of the season. But make no mistake, the 49ers are in the hunt for not just the playoffs. They are in the hunt to potentially get where they want to go. Is it going to be easy? No. Are they going to have to overcome a lot of obstacles? Yes. But if you are going to have key performers step up in big ways, then it's going to work out. And I've talked about this a lot. If you get an offensive performance that's extremely balanced, about 250 yards through the air and 150 yards on the ground, and you get close to 400 yards, that's about as perfect a game as you can get on offense. 49ers did that. They did not get completely 250 yards through the air. Mac Jones threw for 235. And, of course, they ran for 159. But that's pretty darn close to perfection when it comes to balance. 39 rushes. That's exactly where you want to be. Magic number for the 49ers. Anytime they get 40, it's a wrap. They're going to win. So you run the ball successfully, you win. So they've been doing a really good job taking care of the football. It was a great performance against the Giants. Now, how do they build off that against the Rams? It's going to be the question. But there were a lot of players that played pivotal roles in this game. And I want to give them their props, and I want to talk about what that means for the 49ers moving forward, especially because there's still some guys that could be coming back sooner rather than later. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. So I want to start with the quarterback. Mac Jones. And I thought that Mac Jones played really well. And I thought he was coming off probably his worst performance of the season against the Houston Texans. But it was pretty much everyone's worst performance of the season against the Houston Texans. but I thought he did so good. And in the early part of this game, he was just spectacular, being 14 of 14 with the way that he was getting the ball out and throwing a very catchable ball, throwing it in rhythm, and a lot of times leading his receivers right where they wanted to get. So that was a big time game for Mac Jones. And where does that rank? Well, he's fourth. He's tied for fourth best in 49ers history. The 14 completions. It tied Steve Young, who had done it on October 16th, 1994. The only guys ahead of him, Steve Young, it was number 2 overall. He had a 16 completion performance, and Joe Montana, number 1. In December of 1987, he had 17 consecutive completions. But it was just another good day by Mac Jones. He threw for 2 touchdowns, was very successful in getting the ball out, finding the open Christian McCaffrey, then finding the open Juwan Jennings on the whip route. He was just on point. Now, was it perfect? No. Still striving for that perfect game, but it was plenty good enough, and I thought he played well above par in this matchup. So it was a good game. I thought he did well. We're still seeing him hold the ball sometimes a little bit too much. It also doesn't help when Brian Burns, is able to dominate the right tackle the way he did on some occasion. But Mac Jones consistently plays well, and this is what the 49ers need from their quarterback, especially with Kyle Shanahan's new comments about Brock Purdy. He said, you know what? He wasn't that close to actually being active this week. And everything about the rhetoric in this, this week, it's really seemed like Brock Purdy was close. Of course, as we got closer down the week, it just looked like maybe he was going to dress and be a backup quarterback this week. But ultimately, they're trying to find the right exact time to bring Brock Purdy back. And they've got a little bit of a luxury here because Kyle Shanahan said with Brock Purdy's injury, he's probably going to have to deal with it all season. It's always going to be something that's there. Even when he comes back and he starts playing, there's always the chance of re-injury. The good news for the 49ers is they have the luxury of having Mac Jones, having the capabilities of having a player that can put in, that could go execute the way that he executes and gets things done. Is it to the level of Brock Purdy? No. Is it competent NFL starting quarterback caliber? Yes. And that's ultimately all you can ask for from your backup quarterback. And I think that the juice that he displays and kind of the energy that he puts out, the team vibes off of it. I think that's very, very important. So I wanted to put Mac Jones out there because I think that, he did a really good job in this game and he deserves some flowers, that's for sure. When I'm hard on him, I'm hard on him, right? That's what I want to be. But when he plays well, I want to make sure, I give him the praise as well. It's all about staying transparent and, calling it the way that it is. And I think it's entirely important. Now, one of the big moments for the 49ers this week was the activation of Spencer Burford from the IR. They had opened his practice window last week. They did not activate him for the game versus the Houston Texans. I bet they wish they would have after the performance that they got from the offensive line in that game. Now, we can't put it entirely on one player, but I will say this. Connor Kobe struggled mightily last week, and that has been the weakness of the 49ers offensive line over the first 8 games was the left guard spot. Ben Bartch, he played pretty well when he played, but still, I think the way Jake Brendel was playing early in the season, it was still left guard that was producing the weakest results. And nothing against Ben Bartch. Ben Bartch was satisfactory, but I just think early in the season, that's how it was. Then Connor Kobe started struggling. And that really kind of made the 49ers offensive line be inconsistent because he's not consistent enough yet. He's a young player. You expect him to make mistakes. You're just trying to hope or trying to get him to the point where he could be more consistent with good plays compared to negative plays. Well, guess what? Spencer Burford stepped in, and I thought he did a really, really good job. Now, is it perfect? No. And this is his first opportunity to play this season. So you expect some reps that maybe aren't perfect. He's just coming off an IR, so he was on the shelf for a while. but I thought that he did a good job. And I felt like this offensive line had more cohesion, even with Spencer Burford and Matt Hennessy, who weren't day one starters for the 49ers. I felt like it was really put together and they were able to execute the game plan both in the run game and the passing game. So I thought Spencer Burford was a nice addition to the 49ers offensive line. Now you've opened up Ben Barch's practice window. He had 1 week of practice. He could presumably be activated for the Rams game. So the 49ers have a decision to make. What do you do? Do you start Spencer Burford at left guard again? Do you wait another week to activate Ben Barch? Do you activate Barch, put him back in the starting lineup? I think that there's a chance that what the 49ers ultimately do is activate Ben Barch and then go with a little bit of a rotation. I don't know if that happens this week against the Rams, but it definitely could. They're going to need all hands on deck as they get ready for a very impressive defensive line that has pass rushers up the wazoo. And so I think that this is going to be a situation where 49ers got some really good play from Spencer Burford. I think that Spencer Burford is capable of being a starting NFL guard in this league. And I thought him and Trent Williams, who is kind of his mentor, and they work well together. I thought that that was a good, a good look for the 49ers. And Jake Brendel is also getting close to coming back as well. So the 49ers could have some real influx in talent when it comes to the offensive line. And then the depth starts looking a little bit better as well with guys like Connor Kobe further down the depth chart. So I thought Burford did a really good job run blocking. I thought his pass blocking was effective. Did he give up pressures? Yes. But I thought overall it was good. I do want to, see how this thing shakes out when I get into the All-22 film, and I'll be breaking it all down. It'll be available over on Patreon. I will break down, every single play, offense and defense on Patreon. Every single game all year is available over on Patreon. You can go check it out. Also, a standalone show with Jay Hill, the Ant Hill Show. That's available every single week as well. Usually we record that on Tuesdays. So, come over, check out Patreon if you have the chance. But Spencer Burford, to me, was just a stabilizing force. And I get it. When you look at the Giants, they have struggled a little bit stopping the run. It's kind of been hit and miss. But it was good to see the 49ers offensive line take advantage of a defensive line that they absolutely needed to take advantage of in this game. Now, next up, I want to talk about Jauan Jennings, because I thought Jauan Jennings had his best game of the season. It was the first time the 49ers got him involved early, and then were able to consistently get him the ball when they needed to. Now, it wasn't a big number, right? It wasn't like a huge game, but I thought it was an effective game. We seen Jauan Jennings making blocks in the run game. We saw him making big catches. We saw him get the touchdown catch on the second drive. He was just more effective than we've seen him all season long. And I think this is a positive trend for the 49ers. It really felt like the 49ers offense was clicking and they were able to get the ball out to their weapons. And Jauan Jennings is a big part of that. But it wasn't just Jauan Jennings. Guys like Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, they were all blocking really well. It wasn't just what was going into the passing game, but the blocking as well. And this was the most Jauan Jennings-esque game that we've seen from him since 2024, when he was really a Pro Bowl caliber player last year. This year, it's been a little bit different, but this was effective Jauan Jennings. The 49ers need effective Jauan Jennings. And I know there's a lot of conversation about Jauan Jennings potentially getting traded, but you just got to kind of ignore the noise right now and just look at this team that I'm not sure they want to trade away a very solid wide receiver when you need him on offense as you're right in the mix for the playoffs. So I thought it looked really good having Jauan Jennings back. He was highly effective, and effective Jauan Jennings, especially in the red zone, is exactly what you need, but even more so in the running game. When you're running the football, it takes all 11 guys to effectively have a good run game, and I thought Jauan Jennings played into that. Now, if you're going to bet this week, bet with FanDuel. The San Francisco 49ers are a underdog at 3.5 to Los Angeles Rams, which is surprising because the 49ers are playing at home. Now, don't forget, the 49ers were an 8.5-point underdog when they traveled to Los Angeles to take on the Rams on that Thursday night football game that the 49ers were able to upset the Rams and win. So normally if you're at home, you get the advantage of 3 points. So this could have easily been a 6.5 point advantage for the Rams. So they are very high on the Rams. Now the over under for this game is 49.5. There's going to be lots of cool player props and other things that you can bet on. So if you are going to bet with FanDuel, and if you think the 49ers are going to keep it close, you might want to bet early this week. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this number as the week progresses. Now let's talk about Tatum Bethune, because Tatum Bethune played really well in this matchup, and I was a big fan of what he's been able to do over the last several weeks. And when you lost Fred Warner, there were big question marks about what could you possibly get from the linebacker room. And you knew that D. Winters had been up and down. He started really strong playing next to Fred Warner. And then as the season kind of progressed, he struggled a little bit more in coverage. He just wasn't quite as dynamic of a player as we saw early in the season. So we needed him to rebound. But you also, what were you going to get from the second-year player out of Florida State, Tatum Bethune? And since he's came in, he's just been effective. It's double-digit tackles every single week. And in this one, he had a career-high 16 tackles. Tatum Bethune is effectively everywhere. He makes tackles in the run game. He makes tackles in the passing game. He is just flying around and making tackles. Now, 8 of those tackles were solo tackles, which means it wasn't him getting involved, and somebody else coming and cleaning it up or him cleaning up another tackle. No, he was solo tackling, making those players. Tatum Bethune's 16 tackles are the most in a single game by a 49ers linebacker since Michael Wilhoit against the New York Giants in October of 2015. That just illustrates the kind of rare air that Tatum Bethune is in. Now, the reason Fred or Dre Greenlaw are not listed, as the top, and it's Michael Wilhoit, is because they used to split tackles. Right now, Tatum Bethune is having to do a lot. And so what you're seeing is a young player that's stepping up into some key categories, and he's starting to look like another big 49ers hit at linebacker, right? 49ers hit on Fred Warner, that's 100% accurate. They had hit on Dre Greenlaw, boom. They had hit on Azeez Al-Shire, boom. It looked like they had hit on D. Winters, and he's still a little bit, up in the air. But it looks like they hit on Tatum Bethune. That's a 7th-round pick that is stepping in. And so this is good for the 49ers moving into the future. You got D. Winters. He's still under contract for next year. You're going to have Fred Warner back next year. You're going to have Tatum Bethune for 2 more seasons at least. That's what his contract is. So the 49ers linebacker room looking pretty good, especially because you got Nick Martin as well, who's developing. 49ers at worst roll in with 4 super strong linebackers next year. But I love the way Tatum Bethune plays. It's just, he's going to be in competition for anything. This dude is a dog. And if he could ever get his coverage up a little bit, he could be a starting will linebacker in this league, and he could play next to Fred Warner for the next several years. No matter what happens to Nick Martin or what happens to D. Winters, it wouldn't matter. That's how good Tatum Bethune's played. And let me say this, he's becoming a little bit of an intimidator. The way that he hits, he's lighting people up. Jackson Dart, he was taking inventory after the last touchdown that the Giants scored. He was on the sidelines, and a couple of plays before that touchdown, he got absolutely smacked by Tatum Bethune. And that's the thing. Bethune is bringing the wood out there. And that is going to be big as you go on in the season, because you need guys who can be intimidators. You need guys that are going to make you think about going over the middle. You think that Theo Johnson just dropped the ball for no reason? No. He dropped it because he thought that Tatum Bethune or Malik Mustafa were going to absolutely take their head off over the middle of the field. That is exactly what the 49ers need. And Tatum Bethune brings that attitude. So I absolutely love it. Stock up, big stock up for Tatum Bethune. He just continues to get better. Is he Fred Warner? No, nobody is. Fred Warner is the best linebacker in football. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But is Tatum Bethune a good NFL starting linebacker? Absolutely, he is. He has definitely proven that. That's what's keeping the 49ers in games is because he's able to communicate and he's a good linebacker. Now, Cleveland Farrell, I got to say, stock up. I wanted this. I've been saying it for weeks. Once he was released from the Chargers practice squad, let's get Cleveland Farrell here. And Cleveland Farrell did not disappoint. He comes in his first action as a San Francisco 49er. He has 3 tackles and he has the big sack. And that's the one where he's working around the edge, can't quite get home, but continues to hustle on the play and absolutely smashes Jackson Dart from behind and gets him to the ground. But it was good to see Cleveland Farrell set a firm edge in the run game and just show he's still a complete defensive end that can produce. His time in San Francisco, he got 3.5 sacks. His time in Washington, 3.5 sacks. Well, guess what? He's almost, a third of the way there. So we're seeing a opportunity for Cleveland Farrell, and he might have more of an opportunity depending on what the prognosis and diagnosis is for Mikael Williams. And I have a feeling this is going to be an ACL, but at the time of recording, I don't know for sure. There could be a chance Cleveland Farrell is added back to this active roster for the 49ers. And I think after his performance and only being with the team 1 week, it probably needs to happen. He probably needs to fill that role. Now, I thought that he played well in this game, and he continues to prove that he's got some worth in the NFL, and especially for the 49ers. I think Cleveland Farrell could be here for the rest of the season. I don't think that's a bad thing when you look at the 49ers' depth. Now, Bryce Huff, he could be coming back this week. That would be huge. Kyle Shanahan kind of alluded to that. I think it was Robert Saleh who actually said he would come back this week. So Bryce Huff is a welcomed addition back to the lineup, but they might need Cleveland Farrell to kind of fill the role of what you were getting from Mikael Williams. Him, Keon White are going to have to step up. Sam Okuwanu played well in this game. I'm going to talk about him next. But I think Cleveland Farrell, it was just really nice to see, and it's stock up 49ers. They just keep finding guys to plug and play, even though they're suffering so many injuries. It's an important investment to have is one of these guys you can get on the cheap, and Cleveland Farrell is definitely one of those guys. Now, I said I wanted to talk about Sam Okuwanu because I do. Sam Okuwanu is a stock-up 49er. What he did to Marcus Bowe in this game was absolutely put him on his keister because of the power that he displayed and then the handwork off of that. And I thought that he did a really good job. But Sam Okuwanu had 4 tackles. He had 1 sack of Jackson Dart. So he has 2 sacks this season. Does he need more production? Yes. But if you told me before the season started that Sam Okuwanu was going to end up with 4 or 5 sacks, I would have told you that was a very successful season. So he's starting to get going a little bit. We've heard Robert Saleh is very fond of Sam Okuwanu, but he's consistently producing as a starting defensive end. That's what they need. They need guys who can go eat snaps and eat reps. And this isn't even 100% Sam Okuwanu. He's dealing with a little bit of an injury and a carryover from last week, but he was able to go out there, gut it out, and put pressure on Jackson Dart. And I'm sure the 49ers defensive line's a little sick that they didn't get more sacks. They had opportunities to get Jackson Dart on the ground a few more times. Didn't do it. Only got to him twice. It was Farrell. It was Okuwanu. But yeah, Sam O has been playing pretty good out there. And I think this is one of the key factors of why the 49ers feel like maybe they need to go add another edge rusher to add to this mix, because they do still have some formidable pass rushers who could generate some pressure, but some guys who could set the edge. That's the thing. Cleveland Farrell, Robert Beal Jr., Keon White, those guys are going to be highly successful setting the edge in the run game. The only guy who's probably the best pass rusher of the guys I talked about is Okuwanu. So we did see Robert Beal Jr. put some pressure. I want to tip the cap to him. I thought that he probably had his best game as a pro as far as generating pass rush. I want to see how it looked when it comes to the All-22 with him running the foot or stopping the run, but he usually does that pretty well. So it is stock up for Robert Beal Jr., which is important too, because you need guys that can play that position. And I do think that he could add something, continue to add something to this football team. Now I want to continue to bring up how good Eddie Pinheiro was in this game. He had a 54-yard field goal and a 33-yard field goal. He converted on all 4 PATs, continues to be a very good, solid kicker for the 49ers. 19 consecutive field goals for Eddie Pinheiro. He is now tied kicker Phil Dawson for the most consecutive field goals in franchise history. Now, he's got a ways to go because at the top of this list, you've got to be really good. And Robbie Gould's at the top. He made 33 consecutive field goals from 2017 to 2018. And then, of course, Phil Dawson in that 2013 season made 27 straight. So he's got a ways to go, but he's been the model of consistency for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I got to talk about Christian McCaffrey. And you might say, Christian McCaffrey, stock up? But right now, Christian McCaffrey's on an absolute tear with what he's been doing this season. He had 2 touchdowns in this game. He was extremely effective, both on the ground and through the air. Over 100 yards on the ground. I know it took 28 carries, but he was effective on the ground. There were explosive runs sometimes. There wasn't anything. But also, he was effective catching the ball again. He had 106 yards, and then that's on the ground. And then he had 67 receiving yards as well. So this season, he has 596 rushing yards and 626 receiving yards. He is the second player since 2015 to record 500 or more rushing yards and 500 or more receiving yards in the first 9 games of a season since Saquon Barkley did it in 2018. He also became the second 49ers player to accomplish the feat, joining Roger Craig in 1985. This dude is just putting up crazy numbers. But the fact that he's on pace for a 1,000 season just illustrates how good Christian McCaffrey is. And he has been opening things up for his teammates. And now that you get George Kittle back, it's starting to open some things up for him, both in the run game and the passing game. But I think Christian McCaffrey's still becoming just an ultimate weapon for the 49ers, and he's just going to continue to roll. Now, the good news for the 49ers, because I do think it's continuing to be stock up Christian McCaffrey, is Brian Robinson was really effective in this game for the 49ers. Brian Robinson hasn't done a whole lot this season. Now, we started to see some things on kick return actually it was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week. He had a really good return. It was last week at the end of the half and got it in 40 yards into scoring position. They capped it off with a George Kittle touchdown. Well, he had another good return in this one that got him to the 40-yard line. So he's showing some things on special teams, which is very nice to see because they were getting nothing out of their return guys, especially when it was Isaac Rendo. But Brian Robinson is extremely effective. Not only does he have really good vision, but he breaks tackles and kick return, which is very important. But in this game, he had 5 carries for 53 yards at a 10.6 yards per carry average. And he had 1 touchdown, and that was an 18-yard touchdown, an explosive run where he runs over the cornerback. It was very nice to see. Now, would we love this to be a bigger split? Would we love for him to get probably closer to 10 carries and for McCaffrey to come down to 23 carries? Absolutely. And I think that as the season progresses, you're going to see more of that as they will kind of start relying more on Brian Robinson in certain situations, give him extra carries and kind of taper off some of the touches for Christian McCaffrey. But they knew they needed to win this game and they were going to have to lean on McCaffrey during this game. But I think Brian Robinson is starting to feel comfortable within this 49er scheme. I think the addition of Spencer Burford allowed them to kind of open up some more holes. They're getting comfortable developing a run scheme that fits the personnel that they have. So I think that we're going to see more of Brian Robinson, but it was stock up. This was the Brian Robinson that we all envisioned when they traded for him from the Commanders, was the big physical runner who could break off a close to 20-yard run and could score touchdowns. But that 10.6 average was ridiculous in this game. And it wasn't just the 18-yard explosive run, but that is kind of how you can tell the 49ers run game is getting going. You had Christian McCaffrey with a 16-yard carry, and you had Brian Robinson with an 18-yard carry, explosive runs. Now I want to talk about Renardo Green, because Renardo Green has been catching some strays. And, he hasn't been phenomenal. I think as far as physicality-wise, that was probably the biggest problem for Renardo Green, was he hasn't been physical when it comes to stepping up and making tackles. But what he has been doing is making plays on the football. And he really hasn't been giving up that many yards. Occasionally he's had some ineffectiveness. But in this game, not only did he make plays on the football, he also contributed with 6 tackles in this football game. So he played more physical. That was very impressive. He had 2 passes defended. Extremely important. One of those over the middle of the field for a 3rd down stop. So Renardo Green was kind of coming into his own. Maybe he's getting healthy. Maybe his neck's starting to feel better. But stock up. And if you can get Renardo Green playing well to go with what Demo's already doing, because Deommodore Lenoir has played really well this season, if you could get both of those guys playing well, that will take some of the pressure off of the safeties and some of the pressure off of Upton Stout. Now, I do believe, not a lot of trade talk in this episode, but I do believe the 49ers are probably in on looking for defensive back help. If Cam Taylor-Britt is available from the Cincinnati Bengals, I do believe that would be an excellent fit for the 49ers. They were high on him when he was coming out. So that is a potential target for the 49ers, and that could be a shakeup when it comes to the 49ers starting lineup. I think you could easily put Cam Taylor-Britt at nickel, and I think your secondary becomes extremely successful right away. But it has to have Renardo Green play really well, and I thought that he played well in this game. And so I want to give him his props for what he was capable of doing, and I think it's stock up Renardo Green. Now, there's plenty of players other players who played well. These are the ones I wanted to highlight. If I didn't mention one, leave it in the comment section. I'm curious, and then that way I could kind of get to it as well. We're going to be talking trade deadline and moves. This week it's going to be very important. We're going to be recording the Ant Hill Show on trade day. So if you want to join Patreon to check that out, that's going to be available. I don't know if any moves will happen while we're recording, but that will happen. I'll try to go live as soon as I can. But with work, it sometimes can be a little bit more difficult to get on live and talk about the trades as they happen. But I definitely want to talk 49ers trades, whether they make one or they don't. It's an exciting time for the 49ers. They're in the mix for the playoffs. Stock up for the entire 49ers football team. And another thing, stock up special teams. We've been talking about it a little bit. They continue to get better and better. Brant Boyer doing some work with the 49ers special teams. Complimentary football. Absolutely love it. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.